Hi, this is JR of the Australian band Nocturnal Graves, and you are listening to The Bloodshed with Vampire on Metal Messiah Radio International.
JR, thank you very much for taking time out for this interview, and it's a great pleasure to have you here on The Bloodshed with the Vampire on Metal Messiah Radio International.
No problem. Pleasure to be here.
You're always welcome, and thank you very, very much for accepting this interview.
My pleasure.
Let's start this interview, and I want to take a little time to go over your solo project that you have started back in 2010. And JR, what a great talent you have, and able to do all the instrument and vocals for this Australian death black metal project from Macedon Ranges, Victoria, under the name Impious Baptism. After a couple of demos EP, you release Impious Baptism debut full-length album Wrath of Apex Predator was released April 16, 2013 via Hell's Head Bangers record. JR, how has the album gone so far, and what does it really meant for you to have put out this release?
When we actually put Nocturnal Graves on hold in 2010, that's when I started working on the Impious Baptism material. It sort of just started really as a side project thing, just for literally something to do, because I still wanted to keep creating music, of course, but things weren't really happening in Nocturnal Graves at the time. So yeah, I basically just started that band as a side project. A couple of demos and a couple of 7-inch EPs came out, and then Hell's Headbangers did the full length.
Okay, it was a real success and a real pride for you in order to get this album out?
Yeah, sure. Having to do everything myself, given that I can play drums and guitar and so forth. Yeah, I mean, it's a time-consuming process, and getting in the studio and working on music is pretty much something that I try and do nearly every day, whenever possible. So working like that, it's something that I obviously enjoy. And yeah, I mean, it definitely gives me a good feeling to complete, a whole album worth of material that I'm, happy with. So yeah, I mean, it's a good feeling to be able to do that on your own.
To be honest with you, I didn't know about this band, and I went over to check some songs that you have on this album, and I really like your work done on this album, Wrath of Apex Predator. I'd like to ask, for all the fans that really want to get to know more about Impious Baptism, are you planning to hire band members at some point at time and to start doing live shows? And are you working now on new album for this band?
Well, actually, there are no plans to do shows and stuff like that with Impious Baptism. It's literally a studio only project. I actually have a whole album worth of material that I need to at some point go through, get organised to be able to actually record. But things with Nocturnal Graves at the moment are so busy that just trying to find the time to work on Impious Baptism material is not the easiest thing, because the focus right now is on Nocturnal Graves. But at some point in the future, I'll definitely do some Impious Baptism releases, that's for sure.
Okay, as soon as that time comes, I hear from now on, JR are inviting you to, do an interview, especially for this band, and let's talk more deep into all that has to do with this band.
Yeah, no, that would be fine, no problem.
Okay, go back to what we here for. Nocturnal Graves were originally formed in Melbourne, Australia in 2004. Two well-received demos of Profanation of Innocence and Deathstorm follow in the same year, quickly scoring a record deal, and the band officially released Necromancer 7-inch vinyl in 2006 before unleashing their cult debut full-length Satan's Cross the following year, which was reissued in 2017. JR, please just a quick description on how the band was formed with ex-member So Long I Have Followed You of Destroyer 666 and Denounced Pyre in 2004. Yeah. And would you like to present us the band's current lineup?
Sure. I formed the band in, like you said, 2004. At the time, my brother, actually, who doesn't play music anymore, he was playing drums at the time, and so he joined as the drummer in Nocturnal Graves, and I was on guitar and vocals. And we had Regan, the bass player who was in Destructor. He joined Nocturnal Graves, and the three of us did the first two demo tapes. Then my brother left the band because he was busy with his work as a tattoo artist. And then we literally, just myself and Regan, continued the band, started writing the Satan's Cross. So we did the Necromancer picture 7-inch, just the two of us. I liked the drums and guitars for that, and Regan took care of the bass. Following that, when we started writing the Satan's Cross album, we got another member to help us out who was playing guitar in Denouncement Pyre at the time, and that's Eradicator, who played on Satan's Cross. The guitars on Satan's Cross, and I just took care of the drums and vocals for that record. Following the Satan's Cross album, he left the band, and we continued as a two-piece for a while, just myself and Regan on bass. And then after that is when we put the band on, I put the band on hold because we wanted a full band, but we were using session guitarists at the time for live shows, which is actually Decaylust, who is playing in Denouncement Pyre and is now a full member of Nocturnal Graves. In 2010 is when we put the band on hold for a couple of years. Then 2012, I believe. So 2010 we went on hold, and then 2012 we got a new lineup together, which was Shrapnel from Destroyer 666 had moved back to Australia, so he joined on guitar. Decaylust became a full member on guitar, and I moved to bass and vocals at that point in time, and we got a new drummer, Luke Wilson, who also plays in Denouncement Pyre. So four of us then did the Bloodline of Cain album.
But Luke Wilson has left the band now. He's still playing with Denouncement Pyre?
He is, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
But going back to what Satan's Cross, this album you released in 2007, but re-released via Season of Mist last year, 2017. What an outstanding artwork by this renowned painter, Paolo Girardi, who also do works for Inquisition, Malina, Road to Sesame. Original release in 2007 via the Americans' Nuclear War, now production. Why have you decided to reissue Satan's Cross? And will the early demons, Profanation of Innocence and Deathstorm, be re-released as well?
Well, actually, we don't have any plans to re-release the demos, but the reason that we re-released the Satan's Cross album, since the original pressing sold out from Nuclear War Now, had people constantly asking for copies of it, and Nuclear War Now hadn't repressed anything. So when we spoke with Season of Mist about signing with them, the idea to re-release Satan's Cross came up in the initial stages of discussing things with them. So that was something that they wanted to do. So, and because we wanted to have it available again, it was only a limited edition. I think there was 1,100 vinyls sold and, a couple of thousand CDs pressed. So it was relatively sought after, and it still is today. I believe that the sales have been really good for the re-release. So there's definitely interest in it from people. So,
but you have done some changes on recordings, do a better recording, make the mixing, master and everything on the re-release?
No, we kept the original mix. It's literally the same pressing as the original. We didn't actually feel we needed to or wanted to remix or change anything with the recording because we're still happy with it.
Okay, so I've heard the early demos and songs that when you first started the band back in 2004, but don't you think it will be very great for the fans to have these demos on a compilation album or anything like that?
Possibly. To be honest, like the demos they're so primitive and are recorded in a bedroom on a 4-track mixer, and it's so primitive and far away, I guess, now from what the band actually is today, that I personally don't feel the need for it. I mean, people can still, I know there are tons of bootleg copies floating around on the internet for sale. So, I mean, at the same time, if people do want them, they can easily track them down. Having them on vinyl or something like that personally isn't something that I'm really concerned with actually happening.
If I'm not wrong, the Bandetta split in 2005 with bands like Goat Horns, Goat Prayers, Goat Blast, named Goat Watcher, United Satan's Goat Tribute to Assault.
Yes.
When the band hits Europe, I'm talking about in 2009, you celebrate the event with the Grave Spirit Sessions split with Hell Spirit as well. Do you still remember all these trips you've done in Europe? Go back to the split albums. You like doing split albums? How did you enjoy doing the split album with Hell's Spirit, and how has everything gone? Have you guys already played together on a tour, on shows?
No, and I actually don't know even if Hell Spirit still exists. I met those guys when I was in Finland in 2006. We had contact for a while, and that's how the split album came about. I mean, I've always been into that format. You know, there were good releases in the 90s. You know, the Necromancer Barathron split or stuff like that, and I really liked I still do like that format. But I mean, at this stage, we don't have any plans to do another split LP at all. I always found the split LPs similar to buying two EPs in one. So it was a good promotional thing in the underground for labels to release split albums. I just basically wanted to keep that sort of spirit alive.
How was your trip to Europe?
Well, I've been there a number of times. I've been on a few different tours in Europe. Every time it's been great.
How do you feel being on the road, JR?
I love it. It's where I would like to spend the majority of my time.
Rather than be in the studio?
Yeah, I mean, either in the studio. I love being in the studio, but when I'm not in the studio, if I could spend most of the time on the road, aside from being in the studio, then I definitely would. I feel right at home touring, so it's definitely something that I want to keep doing as much as possible.
Nocturnal Grave rise up from the crypt 2 years after and widely extended their international fan base with the release of the sophomore album From the Bloodline of Cain, released November of 2013 via the American label based in Ohio, Hell's Headbangers record, with an awesome tunes like The Concourse Flame, Ascensions Through Lucifer Might, Through the Devil's Flesh, and even the self-title From the Bloodline of Cain. I mean, what a great album, JR. I must congratulate you for this outstanding work or release.
Steady
JR, the band was put on hold for about 2 years and you have started back in 2012. Was this time you needed to reform the band and to work on the From the Bloodline of Cain album? I'm asking you this, but besides knowing that you was working on Impious Baptism beside your solo project, did this time in hiatus give you enough room, space to work on this album?
Definitely. When Nocturnal Graves came to, when we put the band on hold, it was the whole situation surrounding the band was very uninspiring. I was writing everything and all of the music and taking care of everything to do with the band, and it honestly became really tiresome because I didn't have any input from anybody else to contribute ideas. So taking that 2 years was definitely something that I needed to do. I needed to basically step away from Nocturnal Graves for a while to get my inspiration back. And that was basically how Impious Baptism came about, because there was never any intention to actually play live or do anything like that. It was literally just to be creative and get in the studio and work in solitary, which was something that I could do without, any expectations of playing shows or doing any tours or anything like that. But after a while, the inspiration, like it always does, it ebbs and flows. It goes up and goes down. But the inspiration came back, and it was the perfect time because I had then spoken with Shrapnel and Decaylust about getting Nocturnal Graves back together with a new lineup, and everything just worked perfectly. Those guys had a lot of great ideas and they could contribute to the arrangements and song ideas and so forth. So that really brought the fire back to get the band going again and to go forward, which is where we are now.
When did you start writing the songs for From the Bloodline of Cain album?
Yeah, I started probably sometime in 2011, just putting some ideas down, and that was when I showed Shrapnel and Decaylust what I'd been working on, and they were well into it. And that was basically when we sat down and had a discussion and said, should we do this? So yeah, around 2011.
How was the recording at IHQ Recordings gone?
Yeah, actually that's my own personal studio, so I engineer as well. It was really comfortable. We can work at any time. We can spend as much time as we want because we're not paying, for studio time. Yeah, it's always really comfortable recording, which I think is important. There's never any stress. Everyone can take the time that they need. The other guys can record guitar parts and stuff at their own homes as well, and bring the files here, and we can work on it from there as well. So yeah, it's an ideal situation to have your own studio when you're doing this kind of thing, that's for sure.
JR, how was your work? This first release you've done via Hell's Headbangers Records gone?
Yeah, there was a few little hiccups and stuff along the way, so just some issues with the layout and so forth of the CD and the vinyl that they pressed, but in terms of what we expected from them, they delivered exactly what they said they would do.
But 5 years after, are you happy that you have released this record through them?
Yeah, definitely. There will be a repress of the vinyl and CD with a remix, because there were some issues that I wanted to fix from the original mix. But yeah, I mean, in terms of how they handled everything, then yeah, definitely. They did a really good job.
Okay, after a great achievement of From the Bloodline of Cain, the band received an invitation to the 2016 edition of Maryland Death Fest and more shows in the US. The band supported the tour with a limited 7-inch EP, Sharpen the Knife, Led Us to the Endless Fire. Wow, that's a great EP. Once again, congratulations. I love both songs, but I love the second one even more, Lead Us to the Endless Fire. That's a killer one. JR, was this the first trip for Nocturnal Grave to the US?
Yeah, it was. We've only been to the US that one time in 2016.
And how was your trip at the Maryland Death Fest?
Really good. We had to play on the last day of the fest quite early, like midday. That was perhaps a bit of a struggle for many people to actually be in a good shape for watching a band at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on the last day of a 3-day festival. But in terms of our performance and the response and everything like that, yeah, we were absolutely happy with it. We think it was a good achievement.
You play at the last day of the festival, but when did you get there? You had at least 24 hours to relax. How long was the flight from Australia to the States?
It's about, I think the trip took us around about 21 hours in total. We had to fly via Los Angeles. So we actually spent a few days in LA. We did a show there. Then we went to Philadelphia, played a show there. Then on to New York, played one show in Brooklyn. And that's when following that, we went down to Baltimore for the Maryland Death Fest.
You're quite relaxed then.
Yeah, definitely. We'd already been in the States for nearly 2 weeks. So, yeah, we just went down to the festival on the Friday and just hung around for the weekend and watched bands and caught up with friends and partied and carried on and then played on the Sunday.
Besides having on your playlist most of the songs from the album Bloodline of Cain, would you like to say or talk a little bit about the 7-inch 2 songs EP, Sharpen the Knife and Lead Us to the Endless Fire?
Sure. We wanted to do something for these American shows. 2 a 7-inch seemed like, was a good idea. With those 2 tracks from that 7-inch, we had made a decision that as a band we were going to start sort of moving away from the most sort of obvious like black thrash metal elements of the previous 2 albums. We didn't want to find ourselves in a situation where we were sort of stuck creatively with what we could actually write with Nocturnal Graves. So we wanted to do an EP that would show a development, the de-development that we were wanting to push the band into. And so we used that EP for those 2 tracks that basically sort of direction that we wanted to take Nocturnal Graves in. So that was basically the impetus behind that particular release.
Endless
When I was waiting for the track list to come out, I don't know why, I had this feeling that you will put these two songs as a bonus track on the new album, but I was surprised when I noticed that that's not the case.
We actually had talked about re-recording at least one or even both of those tracks because the EP itself was so limited, and actually including them on the new album. But by the time we got through all the material that I'd basically written, and also Decaylust had written a track as well, we found that we actually had too much material for an album. So we decided that would re-release that particular 7-inch as a 12-inch EP with an additional 2 tracks that we recorded during the new album recording session. So it would be a 4-track 12-inch, and it's coming out on Shadow Records from Sweden.
Do you believe that will be yet this year?
Yes. From what Tenor from Shadow Records tells us, it is probably already been sent to press. Yeah, we're expecting it out in the next few months.
Australia's Nocturnal Grave will unleash hell in the form of a new album, Titan, on May 18, 2018 via Season of Mist Records. The follow-ups to 2013's Ragging from the Bloodline of Cain. You know, I just can't wait to get this album in my hand.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking forward to it being released. It's something that we spent a lot of time working on, every detail, from the music itself to the layout to the lyrics to everything. Yeah, we're definitely eager for it to come out and to...
Like we was talking before the interview, JR, times fly so much, but at the same time, it seems so far away. I mean, May 18, wow, when? I'm counting the hours, the days. How do you guys feel? Like, just sitting there and waiting for the date?
For sure. The album was, like, the mastering was done for the album in November 2017. So it's been finished for 6 months. Basically, yeah, the label needs about 6 months to get everything prepared and pressed. So that 6-month period has dragged on quite a bit, but that's the nature of the beast.
Comprising veterans of Melbourne, greater Australian extreme metal scene, and featuring current and ex-member of Denouncement, Pyre, and Destroyer 666 are back with their new album Titan to deliver a much more hellish death thrash black metal holocaust for its fans. How was the processing and the recording of this album gone on, the songwriting?
Sure. I started writing the album in 2016, and so it was basically a 2-year process from starting the writing to actually completing everything. Again, we recorded the album at my home studio, so we had all the time that we needed to get everything right, which made things nice and comfortable, which we found pretty important. Beyond that was probably the most intense creative working period that I've ever engaged in with recording an album. It was pretty much 2 solid years without any breaks of just working on this album as much as possible, pretty much every day for 2 years. So yeah, it was interesting. I was pretty much holed up in the studio every opportunity that I had outside of any other work that I was doing. So yeah, it's definitely a good feeling to have it complete.
JR, when I read all the reviews and things that the band have sharpened and honed the songwriting and arrangement skills, what should we understand with that?
Sure. The new album, as always with Nocturnal Graves, I write most of the material, which always just starts out with basic demos of the songs. And once I basically have a handful of material, then I'll start sharing it with the other guys. And then that's when the real sort of creative process begins, essentially. The other guys start contributing their ideas and critiquing what I've put down. And then we start getting together and just working on the songs as a whole, and everybody then can start to get more and more involved, and so things just basically morph into what the finished product becomes. So having the ability to work like that and having the input from the other guys definitely makes the whole process much more interesting, and it gives a real feeling of actually being in a proper band. That was the element that basically led Nocturnal Graves to being put on hold in 2010. That is that I didn't have that. I didn't get that feeling at all of it being a proper band. Working on music like that and having partners there that can bandmates that can really contribute tangible ideas and bring the songs to another level, it's priceless for what we're doing.
What can you say to fans that already knows the band or that even have seen the band playing live and that have listened to your early materials or the last album and the last EP, and to fans that has not heard the bands yet,
sure,
or fans that don't know the band yet, what can they expect with this new album?
Well, I mean, when we started writing, before we actually even started writing the new album, we did have a lot of discussions about where we wanted to take things and so forth. Because, I mean, I don't just speak for myself in the band, but we all still seek out new bands and new music and so on and so forth. But we all collectively agreed that in 2017, things were getting, for me, quite stagnant in the scene. Bands just repeating what's already been done and not really bringing much new stuff to the table that is really interesting to me personally. So one of the things we wanted to step away from was like predictability in the songwriting process. You know, there's things on the Bloodline of Cain album which to me are predictable. You listen to some of the tracks and the arrangements are quite similar and there's not a lot of surprises in there. When we approached this album, we wanted to make it unpredictable, hence the arrangements being more complex. And yeah, it was basically just we had to push things forward. So, and to keep things interesting for ourselves as musicians and songwriters. The most important thing for any band is to be honest with what they're doing and play the music that they genuinely feel rather than trying to appeal to any particular crowd. So I think what people should expect is the unexpected in a sense. I mean, it's still a vicious album. To me, it's the most extreme thing that we've done. But I mean, it's not just all blast beats. There's a lot of dynamic in the songs, and to me, the arrangement interesting. It's still catchy and memorable in my opinion, but there's more depth to it. So if people that are into the history of the band, I'm sure there are people that would prefer everything just to be fast, and they're entitled to that, but they're also entitled to listen to the old albums if that's what they want to do, and not listen to the new album if they want. But at the same time, I think that it would be good if people actually approach the new album with a bit of an open mind and actually understand as well that as musicians and songwriters, like, we have to challenge ourselves and we have to be inspired by what we're doing. Otherwise, there's no way we're going to actually try and convince people that we're genuine about what we're doing if we're faking it, you know. So I think people should just approach it with an open mind, but they still shouldn't expect any nice, happy music. It's extreme and it's dark and it's violent. So, and I think that's the characteristic of Nocturnal Graves' music, is that it's always been aggressive and violent sounding. So that element is there. I think it's more present than it's ever been in the new material. So people want vicious, unpredictable, dark, black death metal, then I think the new album definitely delivers on that.
JR, even though the album hasn't come out yet, how do you guys as a band feels about all the reviews that has been going out already?
To be honest, I actually read one review, and that was 2 days ago. I generally don't pay much attention, if any, to reviews. Whenever somebody asks me that question, how do I feel about the reviews, it's usually I don't know what the reviews are. To me, another person's opinion on your music, it's valid, and it's I suppose it's more valid for them, and people are absolutely entitled to review and rate and dissect and critique anything that I do. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. But at the same time, we do what we do. I do the music that I do because I feel I need to. And what comes out is what comes out of me. So, another person's opinion, whilst I appreciate it positively, or whether it's positive or negative, I appreciate someone's honesty. But yeah, I've never been one to get caught up in reviews and opinions of what's going on outside of the band. I really just, if we're happy with it, we're happy with it, is basically the mantra that we work by. So yeah, I honestly haven't read any more than one review, which was positive. So, I'm happy to read that. But either way, it really doesn't have an impact on what we're doing. I don't want that to sound arrogant. I do appreciate when people are into the band or what, but yeah, I guess in a lot of ways, I don't want opinions at all to creep into my mindset when I'm writing new material. I want the material to always come from a place of honesty, and for it to be untainted by opinions about whether we should do this or whether we should try that or whatever. I don't want those sort of things to creep into my subconscious when I'm writing. So that's also another reason why I don't read too many reviews and stuff like that.
To be honest with you, you must be very happy because all those reviews that I had a time to read, they're all positive on this new album. Maybe it's too early to say, but so far they are very positive on this new album, Titan, but they're very positive as well on the album you released 5 years ago.
I suppose one of the things, like especially in this today's age where everything is available to listen to on the internet, I really stopped reading like reviews in magazines and fanzines and stuff like that when the internet took off, and I could actually just listen to a band and essentially decide for myself. Reading reviews and hearing another person's opinion, I don't know. If I listen to something and I like it, then I like it. I mean, if I read a review of that particular thing and it's being ripped to shreds by the reviewer, that doesn't change my opinion. If I like a band, then it really doesn't matter to me whether anybody else is in agreement with the fact that I like that band. I think reviews these days, for some people, they're obviously important because they're out there. Record labels are sending stuff around to all sorts of webzines or magazines, and people are writing reviews about stuff. But for me, with the rise of the internet, I can very quickly make up my own mind on whether I like something or don't like something, rather than, relying on the opinion of somebody who I probably and will never ever meet in my life. So, yeah. I mean, again, I don't want that to sound arrogant because...
No, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I really like your answer and I respect it. To go further, how has the recording gone this time in the mixing, the mastering? That has been taken place at your own studio.
Correct. Actually, the mastering was handled by a professional mastering suite here in Melbourne called Deluxe Mastering, who are really great, really professional, and an amazing setup and amazing gear and a great listening room. But everything else, taken care of in my home studio. The engineering and the mixing was basically myself. Actually, on the new album, I did get some mixing assistance from an old friend, Phil Gressick, who was played bass for Hobbs Angel of Death and was in Bestial Warlust for a while, and also Destroyer 666. So it was actually really interesting to mix and have another set of ears here, because Phil has had a lot of recording experience over the years, and whilst he may not know the technical aspects of mixing, he's got a great set of ears. His input actually really helped, and I definitely learned a lot just working with Phil, just in terms of where things are sitting in the mix and how loud things should be, and also just spending the time sitting here mixing. Like if you spend hours in front of a screen listening to music at a loud volume, over time your ears fatigue. Obviously, you get tired, and so Phil had some approaches that I hadn't actually used before in my mixing and stuff. So that was something new on this recording that we did that definitely contributed a lot to the overall finished product in terms of the sound. It was definitely rewarding to have Phil in the studio with us when we were mixing.
GR, the band, first ever that will be released via the French Seasons of Mist record label, one of the world's greatest prestigious label. How are the details around the album release date, and what are the communication and support of the label going so far?
To be honest, working with Season of Mist has been amazing. They've come with a lot of great ideas in terms of like the layout of the new album and the printing, and yeah, I feel that they're doing a lot for Nocturnal Graves, because Nocturnal Graves is a pretty underground band. We've done one small tour in Europe in 2009, and we've been to America once, so we're largely unknown outside of the underground, that's for sure. What I've seen from Season of Mist, what they've been doing is actually, yeah, it's well beyond our expectations, which is great. I mean, it's a good situation to be in, being in a band that we've done a new recording, and it's something that as a band we're very proud of, and we feel deserves to be heard by a wide audience. And I couldn't think of much worse situation to be in than having something like that and not having any real proper label support, a label that's actually prepared to invest time and money and resources into promoting a relatively underground band. That to me that's the reason why we wanted to work with Season of Mist, because we know that they have such a good reputation and they are supportive, of their artists. So being in that position is important for Nocturnal Graves.
when we said that what a great and outstanding artwork band has done on the reissue album 2017 of Satan Cross. When I see this new album artwork, what more can I say? Saying outstanding is just... it's not enough. Was Season of Mist also responsible in the making of this album artwork, JR?
Well, I mean, they suggested a bunch of artists that they thought we might like to use, but we'd already worked with Paolo on the Bloodline of Cain album art, so I already have good contact with him.
So you've done all the paintings?
Well, actually, he's done two for us. He did the Bloodline album cover.
Yeah.
And then the Satan's Cross re-release. The original Satan's Cross artwork was done by a guy called Andrei Buzakov. And that was organized by Nuclear War Now.
Have this album artwork have been done by Paolo as well?
The new album?
Yep.
No, actually, my brother did the new album artwork. He's a talented artist. So yeah, we asked him if he would do it, because then we could work on it together in face to face. One of the things with getting outsourcing artwork obviously is I can't draw or paint anything. Like, I'm absolutely terrible with artwork. Having to try and explain to an artist what it is that you're actually looking for them to do, always things get lost in translation. So on the new album, that was why we asked my brother if he would be able to do it, because we could work together face to face and make sure everything was exactly as we envisioned it, which is what he did. But I think because it took him such a long time to do, I don't know if he would be very willing to do another artwork like that for us, because it was such a time-consuming piece.
That was my next question. I'm so impressed to see that this album artwork has been done by your brother. Is he busy doing more cover artwork for more bands?
Not at all. He actually doing cover art and stuff for bands is something that he has literally zero interest in doing. His trade is he's a tattooist by trade. He owns his own shop, so he's constantly busy working on that. But he also does painting. He paints a lot for his own peace of mind, I guess. That's his thing outside of tattooing. But I think for him, the amount of time that he spends on it and so forth, it's adding cover art and stuff like that for other bands. It's just not something that he has the actual time to focus on. So, but I guess for us, he made an exception, which we're glad for.
Tell him I say hello and really impressed on the job he did. What a great job.
When we saw the finished product, everyone in the band collectively was blown away. I think every single person that I've shown it to as well, that I know personally, have said the exact same thing as us, that it's an incredible piece of artwork. And Season of Mist, Michael, the owner, when we sent it to him, he was blown away by it. So they decided as well with the LP that they were going to press a silkscreen print of the artwork to go with one of the versions of the vinyl. It's definitely an impressive piece of art, and I think most people that see it will, even if they're not into this kind of music, will be impressed.
Yeah.
Upon seeing it.
Talking about vinyl, JR, the album will be available digitally. There will be CDs available. And will there a vinyl also be pressed as your earlier releases?
Yes. From what I understand, there is a black vinyl, and then there's a coloured vinyl version, which is like a marble kind of vinyl, which looks really good, actually. The picture I've seen, it goes really well with the layout. So it's all interwoven together in terms of the colours and stuff, which I think is really important, because we did put a lot of emphasis on the presentation of the new record. So having it on vinyl with a gatefold cover and everything I think it's shaped the listening experience to some extent. The artwork and the colours and everything like that have been used. Mm-hmm. All the presentation needs to be connected to the way the music sounds, in my opinion. Cover art shapes the way music is heard. I remember the first time I ever saw the Ride the Lightning LP, the colours and the artwork, it shaped the way I heard the music. So I always found that album to be one of the darkest, most cold sounding Metallica album, because the layout itself is cold, in my opinion. You know, we do try and put a lot of emphasis on that with Nocturnal Graves. The artwork should fit the music, at least the way that we as the writers of that music want the music to be perceived by the listener.
The band released the new album Titan debut single Exorcist Shedding a Weak Flesh in February, and this one deals with tearing down boundaries and ridding oneself of the restraint and hinder and advancement for the individual. The band's second single, Silence the Martyrs, was released on March 20, a great song, I must say. JR, would you like to talk a bit on what is this song all about?
Silence the Martyrs, that track's about anything to do with silencing the individual freedom of choice and of speech and of the use of reason and logic. I mean, we're living in a world today, at least here in Australia, I've seen it in the States, I've seen it in manifesting in Europe, where reasonable voices are being silenced by politically correct morons whose opinions and ideas are based on nothing more than idealism and their ideal concept of how they want the world to be. It's not reasonable. Anybody trying to actually communicate with those people and using some logic are told that their voices must be silenced. So we look at those kinds of people, the social justice warriors, as they're martyring themselves for an idealistic cause which isn't based on rational thought, it's based purely on emotion. Because they want to silence anybody who disagrees with them, that song was actually a direct reflection of things that we were witnessing and situations that we as people had been involved in, where these social justice warrior types want to silence anybody that's using logic. That song was actually inspired by that.
I don't know if it depends with which record label are you working, or that's up to the band, but how do you guys work in order to choose which song will be chosen as the promotional single, debut singles, which will be the second single, which one will continue?
Well, we specifically chose the first track, Exorcist Shedding Weak Flesh, to be the first promotional single because it's the most different sounding track that Nocturnal Graves has ever done. It's a bit more epic in a way. It's a lot more mood orientated, and to me it's a very dark song. So we actually wanted to put the first single out there as a curveball, something that people wouldn't expect. It got what I was told, it got a varied response. Some people couldn't handle the fact that it wasn't a blast beat song, and then other people were into the fact that it wasn't a predictable, just fast blast beat based song.
In this matter, the record label just leave it up to you.
They do, indeed.
Are there gonna be a third single before the album release, and will there be a video clip as well to be released?
Well, actually, there's another track that's to be released probably in the next week or so. We don't actually have a video, not at this point in time. We've been talking about doing one. I'm not really into most metal film clip. A lot of them just cheesy, in my opinion. If we do a video clip, it would be comprised of a lot of live footage. So that's something that we have to do over the next few months, compile as much good quality live footage as we can so that we can actually put a video together.
Nocturnal Graves are getting ready to conquer the world with their highly anticipated forthcoming third full-length. Titan is in every sense as big as the album's name implies. I just had the chance to hear the two songs the band released so far, and I can't wait to get in touch with Gunnar of Season of Mist in order to get the digital copy of this great album that will be so devastated, I believe. So for all you fans out there, prepare for this great impact. As soon as this album comes out on May 18, you must go buy this great album. We are almost approaching the album release date, which will be May 18, 2018. Are there any album release party programmed so far? And if it's so, where will it be, JR?
See, at this stage, we haven't got anything booked. I think sometime July, August, we will do some shows in Australia as a release show thing. We're in the process of discussing a European tour for possibly later in late 2018. And there's also some talk about going to the States in 2019 as well as South America. Yeah, we do plan on touring quite a bit in support of the new album.
Okay, JR, I want to thank you very much for making this great interview possible, and I want to hand you over the microphone of Madam Messiah Radio for you to invite all your friends, all of the fans to support the band, to buy your album, your early albums, and if you have merchandises, and to attend, like you say, the shows that you have and plans to do this year as yet, and to all the fans outside Australia, to be pending for the band's tour to the US and to Europe again. Don't miss this great opportunity to catch Nocturnal Graves live in concert. And don't forget, May 18, the album will be out, so prepare to get your hands on yours. JR, the microphone is all yours.
Look, thanks for the interview and thanks for the support. And yeah, I mean, it's our hope that people will give the new album a listen. And like I said earlier, with a bit of an open mind, and hopefully give it time to digest and actually give it some good listens instead of 30 seconds of YouTube and then switching off. And that's something I see people do these days constantly. And I think music of substance shouldn't be treated like a McDonald's drive-through meal. It should be digested and absorbed and listened to. I hope that people will do that with the new album and get into it, and hopefully come see us when we're touring.
Before you leave, why Titan as the album title?
The word itself implies something of megalithic power and strength and, the ability to destroy. We wanted a title that reflected something strong and powerful. And so I found that the word Titan, and everyone agreed, basically just was the perfect title for what we'd done. Everything down to the amount of work that we put into the album. It was a titanic effort to put this thing together. So, but like more specifically, it's the lyrics are based around the concepts of individual strength and overcoming and breaking down the chains of the mind and what society try to build up around the individual to keep them enslaved. It does take a titanic effort to forge your own path and stick to it in this world, in this day and age. And that's something we can see is actually getting more and more harder for a lot of people to be able to live in that way, like outlaws, basically. So the album title and the lyrics based around that, the strength that it takes to forge your own path and ever falter on that, and to stay true to yourself and your convictions.
Let me tell you, to answer what you have talked about just a while ago, for people to not just take a quick look, like 20 seconds on YouTube and then go on to some other bands, but take your time, guys out there, fans, listen to this great album, give it a full shot, take your time to listen to the complete album. And to fans that has known the band already, have followed the band's career, that has listened to full lengths like Satan Cross, to the From the Bloodline of Cain, even the EP, the demos, early demos, you have to. These guys have been doing such a great work for the last 14 years, and it's not going to McDonald's, as JR said, that you order a burger then you're done. No, this is a work of taking out the album, putting a band together in order for the band to be the band and get the sound that this band is looking for, and to perform as a band, and to get your album out, to work so long on the songwriting, on the recording, the mixing and everything, in order for you to have this album in your hand, to listen, to enjoy all these songs. It takes a while. It's so many years to get all this work done, and it takes a lot of money. So I really believe that we have to support all these great bands that are still doing this work. I mean, even though they don't win and they don't earn any money on doing this, because they mostly do it for love, for passion of this great music we call metal. So we as fans, we have to support all these guys as you, JR, that are been doing such a great work for so many years. Keep doing this great work you guys are doing.
So I honestly don't thinking that I have a choice in the matter. If I'm not being creative, then yeah, I'm not a good person to be around. So the creative aspect, it's something that I have to do. So like I said, when I first listened to Metallica and when I first listened to Slayer and Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and stuff, I listened to those bands over and over and over again. Like all those albums I listened to intensely. And I know it's 2018 and I get that the music scene is flooded with new bands and new releases. There's so much stuff. It's impossible to keep up with. But new Nocturnal Graves stuff, we broke ourselves over it. Yeah, it would be good if people actually invested a little bit of time to actually listen to it, like you said.
To all of you there, please support this great band, support these guys, and first of all, check this album out, Titan. It will be out on May 18. Listen to it and buy it, because it will be one of the greatest release of this year, believe me. Thank you very much. And like I always say, JR, metal on. Bye-bye.
To the death, man. Hi, this is JR of the Australian band Nocturnal Graves, and I'd like to congratulate Metal Messiah Radio International for its 10th anniversary.